All right, welcome to statistics again. So I know it's been a while, um, and you'll forgive my little setup here. We're redecorating the living room, so I should have a little light better. I should have a better lighting situation soon. So one of the things I want to talk to you today is what happens when we have to deal with grouped data. We're trying to figure out the mean and the standard deviation for grouped data. So there's a problem from your homework. You should expect one like this on your exam coming up. Uh, but what I don't want you to do is to do this thing by hand. Okay, please, for the love of God, do not do this by hand. So we have to figure out the mean and the variance for the particular times. Okay, so what we're going to do is I just wrote down the data over here again for the sake of having like something I could work on. What we need to do is we're going to approximate all of this data as pretty much the midpoint of all of these pieces here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down kind of a midpoint and just kind of do that. So what we're saying is like, yes, I know there are 45 times that happen between 0 and zero point 0.9 months, or 45 articles that happen between 0 and 0.59 months, but we don't have that data. So the one good thing about histograms is histograms summarize data for us. So if you have a lot of data, histograms are good. But the problem is when you want to go back, it's like, well, how many happened here? Like, I don't know. Okay. We don't have the exact values. So we're just kind of stuck. Okay, the other kinds of charts that we didn't actually do is the stem and leaf plot and dot plots. Those tend to preserve your data, which is nice if you have a small amount of data. But when you start getting into the hundreds and the thousands of data points, histogram is really where you want to go because you really want to have things summarized. So we have to find the midpoint of this. And instead of looking at this 0 to zero point 0.9, what I'm going to suggest is look at the 0 to the 1. So we're going to average these guys together. We'll say, okay, what's halfway between 0 and 1? We can come over here. We could see 0 plus 1 divided by 2 and just get this is 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and say the midpoint here is 0 0.5. To get the next one, we're going to go, what's the midpoint between 1 and 2? We could say 1 plus 2, all divided by 2. I'm doing this more because you need a formula, you need a way of figuring this out when the numbers get to be a little bit more complicated. I mean, I know that you're all going to say immediately that 1.5 is halfway between, but if these were terrible numbers, how would you do it? You'd say, okay, that's 3 over 2, which is 1.5. And we would just say, okay, this is 1.5 and so on and so forth, where we would say, okay, 2 to 3, again, just to kind of show you the formula, we're going to go with 2 plus 3 divided by 2. We get 5/2, which is a fancy way of saying 2.5. So we're going to go ahead and replace this one here with a 2.5. Halfway between 2 and 2.9, 2.5. 3 to 3.9, 3.5. You don't have to do the formula every time for this. I trust you can see a pattern and then you're going to be able to figure out what's going on here. For the last one here, I didn't use 5.9. I said, well, they didn't have 6. Okay, they didn't have a 6 on here. It stopped at 5.9. However, humans are pattern-seeking animals. We are very good at finding a pattern. And I trust that you will be able to find the next one here. You would say, well, if there was going to be another class here, what would it be? And I think you would look at this and say, okay, obviously the next one's going to be 6. Okay. So we can go ahead and figure out our midpoints for all of this stuff. So that takes away their group data. We're replacing all the things between 0 and zero point 0.9 with, we're just saying, we're just going to take the midpoint. We're going to say all these 45 things happened at half a month. Okay. All these 19 things happens at 1.5 and so on. Okay. And that's pretty much what we're trying to do with this. Now, I do not want you to have to do this by hand. Okay, please, we have a calculator. You live in the 21st century. Enjoy the fact that you live in the 21st century, at least a little bit. Okay, so we're going to bring up our calculator. This is a TI-83. The TI-84s are a little bit nicer as far as figuring things out, but this is what you do with you guys. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to stat, and this, unfortunately, this whole class has kind of turned into how to use your calculator part of it. But in the interest of not doing all of the tables that we used to do, okay, I can kind of appreciate that we use the calculator for a lot of doing this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say we're going to edit. We're going to go to stat. We're going to say edit. If I have to clear a list, Okay, if you have data in here from before, we're just going to press enter, say clear list, and which list would you like to clear? Second function, list one. You see the little yellow button, the little yellow labeling there for list one? That will clear my list one. Enter and say done. So when I go back, again, stat and go to edit, okay, all of my lists should have nothing in them. I'm going to go back and say stat, we're going to clear another list. We're going to say clear list two because I wanted to start with nothing. Clear list two, done. Stat, looking at the edit, okay, we can go ahead and deal with all of this. Now, when you're entering your data, do not move your cursor. Don't use the arrow key to go up to the list two and delete that. If you do, it'll screw up a lot of your calculator. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know how to fix this. Okay, it's not going to break it, but everything you're going to do after this, you're going to have to put it in a specific list and deal with it. Your calculator might give you some funny statistics for a little while. Okay, so do not go through and do this. I'm pretty sure that the folks at our library are very good at fixing this mistake. So if you need to do that, you can probably YouTube, like, I accidentally erased my list. How do I fix it? Okay, I know there's people that do this because if you do erase it, please don't. You will not be the only one to have done this, and it doesn't fry your calculator for life. It just makes it so it's a little bit wonky. You're going to have to fix this before you go on. So what we're going to do is we're going to say in list one, I'm just going to start typing in the midpoint for each of these pieces. So I've typed in 0.5. There is a point there. 1.5 for the next value. I'm just pressing the down arrow. Okay. We're just going to get 2.5. And then we're just going to get the down arrow to kind of see what's going on with all of these things, okay? Because I'm using a keyboard to help, I'm using the return button and just going through and dealing with this because it's a little bit easier to manipulate the keyboard than it is to manipulate the mouse for me. Okay, so that's where all of these things happened. These are our data points, okay? In list two, we're going to go ahead and type in the frequency. So this is our 45. So we're just going to go in and type in 45, 19, 18, etc. So we have 45, enter 19, enter 18, enter 17, enter 14, and 11. And then look at this. We're going to double check to make sure the list one and list two have the same number of elements in them. And they do. They match. We're perfect. Okay. We've put the data into the calculator. Now it comes time for, hey, we're going to need to figure out some statistics. What do you want to do with this? Well, we're going to go back to stat. Okay, so I just press stat again, and we're going to go over to press calc. Now, with the TI-84s, you're going to have a slightly better interface than the TI-83. But we want to do one variable statistics, and we're going to say, really, one variable stats? Yes. Now, on your TI-84, you're going to say, where's your data? And I said second function, list one, okay, comma, and on this one, on the T84, you'll see a frequency right underneath this. And you're going to say, well, the frequencies are in list two. So we're going to go ahead and type in list two for that one. And then we're going to go ahead and press enter. And then look at this. You have the mean, you have the standard deviation. Remember, SX is the sample standard deviation. Sigma X, this little sigma with this one, this is the population. There's a whole total of 124. If I added up all of these numbers here with 45, 19, 18, that should add up to 124. We have our X bar. Technically, you can keep going. Okay, the minimum, quartile one, median, quartile three, max, all of that stuff shows up for you. Okay, again, you went through the trouble of buying this calculator. Please use it. I don't want you to have to do all this stuff by hand. We don't live there anymore. Okay, but that's what we're looking for as far as this goes. Now I can go ahead off to the side here. I'm going to say, okay, what was my X bar? Okay, so my X bar was, it looks like 2.25. Okay, 2.25. And then let's see what we have here. We're going to say, assume the data to be a population. Which one does that mean? That means use sigma. Sample is S, population is sigma. Okay, so pretty much if it's a Greek letter, it's a parameter, it's for population. If it's a Latin letter, like the ones we use in our regular alphabet, then it's for a sample. Okay, so S for sample, It's a statistic, it's a sample. We don't have to go through everything with that. So we'll go through and say, okay, well, where is my, see, unfortunately, I don't, there it is. Like, where did my little guy go? Okay, sigma, because it said use a population. We're going to say, okay, we need this 1.711, okay, or 1.712. We'll say that. So we'll say sigma is equal to 1.712. And I believe, okay, we can go down to the sigma part of this thing. Let's see if I can go through here. No, I can't. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remember this numbers 1.7115 or 1.712. So we're just going to say, okay, I need 1.712. Okay, and we'll just do our best for writing down this number. And they didn't want sigma. They wanted the variance. Okay, they wanted sigma squared. And all we're going to do is we're just going to say we're going to need to square this number. There it is. Square it equals, and then we're going to get our 2.93. Okay, equals 2.93, etc. How many decimal places do they want? I don't remember. I think it was two decimal places, so we're just going to go with this as our value here. Okay. The reason why in this class we generally use standard deviation versus variance, we will use variance sometimes. It's more for theoretical things, but we use variance. Is the mean and the standard deviation have the same units? We're talking about number of articles here. Average is number of articles. Standard deviation is number of articles. Sigma squared would be number of articles squared, which is a little bit weird. We don't really deal with that. But that's the reason why we really prefer standard deviation over variance. But there are times when we need the variance. Okay, so they ask you a lot in the book. Um, the homework will ask you a lot for variance. So just remember it's the standard deviation squared, and we have to go ahead and figure that out. Okay, I hope that helped figuring out a problem like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop our video and say very good. So that's our problem of the day today, and you will see a problem like this on your exam. So be able to do a problem like this. Okay, thank you very much for watching the video. All right, goodbye.